Your 30s and 40s are when many decisions start to feel heavier. Mortgage, kids, retirement, career pivots. But what can you do now to have future you look back and say thank you? That's what we're going to break down today, so stay with us.
The information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date at the time of its recording. We do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the topics covered. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of investment advice, personalized or otherwise, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Measured Wealth Private Client Group is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission and only transacts business in states in which it is registered or exempt from registration.
Welcome to Financial Futures, a Measured Wealth podcast powered by the team at Measured Wealth in beautiful Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Each episode, we're bringing you fresh insights on retirement, investing, and everything you need to take control of your financial future. Whether you're preparing for retirement or already living it, we're here to help you make informed choices with confidence. To kick off today's conversation, here's your host, certified financial planner and chartered financial analyst, George Zaharopoulos.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm joined by Joe Neff, returning guest, colleague, and wealth advisor at Measured Wealth. Joe is a certified financial planner, and today the topic is financial planning for people between the ages of 30 and 50, give or take. Joe, thanks for joining. How are you today?
I'm doing all right, George. How are you?
Awesome. Doing great. So let's get right to it. This is a very interesting time for a lot of people. There's a lot of balancing going on between money, family, career, everything. I'm kind of just on the other side, getting out of this age range while you're just a couple of years into this age range. So looking forward to hear your take on things. What are you excited about? What do you see this time in life really about?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you what you're looking back and saying thank you about.
So much. I've had the pleasure of working with some great people through all of the companies that I've worked for, all of the people that I've worked with, my family. I have a son, 7 years old, and just happy for family and everything. So health. And so I got a lot to be thankful for. Definitely an interesting time. As I look back, it's stressful. There's a lot going on. You're trying to do the right things for your career. You're trying to do the right things for your financial future. And there is a balancing to it. So, but overall, it's been great.
That's encouraging to hear. Someone just starting this out. Oh, man. Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of challenges that you can talk about all the time, but you're never really prepared for until they're happening. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of rise to the occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Rising to the occasion for sure. And you mentioned there's a lot of challenges during this, period of time. I could tell you all of the ones that I've had, but what do you see to be, the biggest challenges? Because you've done a lot of financial planning for this age range. You've counseled a lot of folks. So what do you see as some of those challenges that people are going to face?
Yeah, it's really interesting doing what we do because I feel like I got to live this life 100 times before I even got to this place. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm going through currently, right? I've got a super young family. My wife is the same age as me, and then we've got 2 kids now, a 4-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and just prior to having the second one, we bought a house in Seacoast, New Hampshire, which is, I feel like, an accomplishment in and of itself.
Right, and I want to just stop you right there because the cost of shelter today is huge, regardless of whether you're buying or you're renting, right?
It's insane. I mean, some of the average rents around here or in other, say, mid to high cost of living areas, for something that's going to accommodate 4 or 5 people, you're looking anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's getting to that place where you're comfortable income-wise to be able to actually move forward with life, right? Yeah. Buy that house, be comfortable having kids. There's no time to ever have where you're ever going to be comfortable having kids.
I mean, that alone right there is like 30 to 40% of a budget. So, the interest rates right now on mortgages are still high. I know there's a few things they're talking about in Congress, to help ease the burden of purchasing a home. So we're not sure on some of those things, but, it is a difficult time. Even if you own something and you want to buy something else, or if you're renting something and you want to buy something, there's a decision. There's factors to weigh in that direction. Also, you have a couple young children, and, a lot of folks out there, 30 to 50, are having kids. Cost of childcare these days, pretty significant. I was kind of doing a little bit of research earlier, and that can range from anywhere from $500 to a couple thousand a month alone. So that's clearly another, challenge for a lot of people in this age range. What else do you see as a challenge for people?
I think most of them overlap with each other, right? So you talk about the cost of childcare. For most regular people, one person in, say, a couple, let's use a married couple for an example. Most couples will have one person that earns more than the other. I mean, if you're anywhere near the average income range for the United States, sometimes it's worth it to just have one stay at home with the kids. Because if you're paying a couple $1,000s a month in childcare, right, you're taking an income, you're paying taxes on that income. If you're in the average range, there's a good chance you're breaking even, if not losing money, by having the second person work. And then on top of that, trying to juggle the idea of renting or eventually buying a house, it's tough. Mm-hmm. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So instead of, paying the child care, one parent can stay at home. You're dropping an income, but, you're offsetting that with saving from those expenses. This might also be a time where you have some debt from student loans, perhaps, that you're still trying to pay off. You're trying to work towards progressing in your own career, and you're balancing multiple goals, right? Because those goals could be, there's retirement down the road, but maybe there's something else in between, like purchasing a second property or purchasing your primary property. So it really is a balancing act.
Yeah, you're standing on one of those boards on a barrel, juggling 4 or 5 balls at a time, and still trying to find time to have fun, right? It can get monotonous and tiring, and you feel like you're not getting ahead. And that's why it's kind of important to build in the rituals, the habits of making responsible choices, so that, okay, it may feel like you're not getting ahead, but you're making progress, whether that's professionally, whether that's in the amount of money you have available to you, the assets you have set away for, say, those bigger goals like buying a home, or maybe it's preparation for having a kid.
Education expenses. I mean, what's the cost of college today?
Oh, jeez. Depends on what you're talking about, right? Because there are some really affordable options out there. It's just it seems like every kid wants to go to one of these. I mean, there's the prestige of going to an Ivy League school or something like that, but those are $70,000, $80,000 a year now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what my kids' intentions will be, but I'm not paying for it.
Yeah, and everyone stay tuned, too, for our next episode is going to be, Joe and I are going to talk about student loans, so that's going to be a real interesting one. What about, the opportunities for people in this age range? What do you see as those opportunities?
Yeah, it's hard to see the opportunities, but the reality is that you have time on your side, right? If you're just entering this phase, the early 30s, right, that's still a lot of time for the little bit you can put away to compound over a long period of time. And there's power in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if you put a little away now, it really, as you get closer to retirement, the less you have to layer in your retirement accounts to kind of make up for that lost time. And quite frankly, I think, for most people, the younger we are, our greatest asset is our future earnings power. So, being able to save a little now really, really helps later. But that's really, I think, one of the opportunities is that future earning power. So what else do you see as, an opportunity for these folks?
Yeah.
And yourself.
Yeah. No, I'm going through this right now. I'm kind of itching to get on to learning more and getting to that next level, So I think the time is powerful in the realm of investing, right? You can put a little bit away. It's going to turn out great in the future. But on that earnings track, I think it's a great time to invest in yourself as well, right? And putting in the work now so that in the future, it's going to pay the dividends.
30 to 50 is kind of a wide range. What do you think the savings range should be? I put it somewhere between 15 and 25%. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your situation, right? Because if all you can afford to do is 10%, or say 5%, right? It's better than nothing.
Right.
Right.
Agree.
Getting something going for yourself where you're building an asset pool. You're putting assets into something that, hey, inflation's not going to devalue it, right? There are all kinds of statistics out there about the value of the U.S. dollar, but putting your money in assets that are going to appreciate over time, even if it's just a little bit, that's okay, right? But from 30 to 50, you got your 30s, where ideally you're probably putting away about 15% of your income, and that can be pre-tax hurts a lot less. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but ideally that's in something like a Roth IRA, right? Because that's got that powerful compounding effect, and then it all grows and comes out tax-free.
So a little amounts today can grow into something significant down the road, which I find, that power of compounding amazing. What else do you think we should highlight for opportunities here?
There are a couple things that it's hard to even think about, right? But because it involves something you don't expect to happen in your 30s and your 40s, right? But life insurance is huge. Taking the opportunity while hopefully you're still relatively healthy, right? You can hit that nice preferred or super preferred level of underwriting on a life insurance policy, so you're paying cents on the dollar in terms of coverage.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that, but we have the the ability to run quotes for a lot of different people, and once you get into your mid-50s, life insurance can be costly. Even before then, and it depends what type of life insurance coverage or protection or policy you choose. But while you're younger, while you're healthier, that can be really more affordable, and you can have a lot more coverage for the cost versus delaying. So I really think that's a very important point.
Along that same vein, I think making sure that you have some disability coverage is important too, right? Because if you can't work, say you're facing that challenge of you're the sole income coming into the house and you can't work, who's going to pay the bills, right? So having something that makes sense along the lines of disability coverage, ideally it's something individually owned, not through a group policy, because you change jobs and it goes away. Mm-hmm. But I think that's another base that it really makes sense to cover, especially if you're a single income household. Yeah,
for sure. Protection is definitely really, really important. And other opportunities I see during this age range, people can actually invest in their own education, to help improve their earnings. But what do you think is often overlooked in general by people in this age range? What do you think? What do you think's overlooked there?
Overlooked? Well, one is the insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is I think most people, at least starting out, they have kind of a poor idea of what they should get for insurance. And then once you're crossing into that 40 to 50, right? Now, if you're a female, you've had kids, that can throw a lot of complications into the underwriting process for a life insurance policy. If you're a guy, maybe you've picked up some bad habits, put on a little weight. Those cholesterol scores aren't looking as great anymore, right? That's going to
once the weight goes on, it's hard to take it off.
Yeah, thankfully we've got our walking challenge going here for the month of January into February, and we're trying to shave off a few pounds ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and then back to that you are mortal thing, right?
Yeah.
If the amount of people between 30 and 50 that don't have an estate plan, it's a little intense.
What do you think is the bare minimum that someone could think about for having an estate plan? I mean, instead of overthinking it, just being able to go in and talk about a few different documents that can be easily taken care of. What do you think that bare minimum might be, just to get started?
Yeah, as somebody in their early 30s, right, a lot of what I have passes by beneficiary. So one, making sure all of your beneficiaries are lined up, right? You have that second kid, you make sure they're on as a contingent, right? Spouse hopefully is the primary, unless something goes wrong. But yeah, you want to make sure you got your beneficiaries lined up. That's an easy one. And then comes the actual estate planning documents part, right? And you want to be able to have a will to clean up what doesn't pass by beneficiary at very least, right? Mm-hmm. And then permissions for the person closest to you to make decisions for you. So those powers of attorney, whether it be financial or maybe a healthcare proxy, right? We're not lawyers, but these are fairly general topics here.
How can measured wealth help individuals with some of these documents?
Great plug, George. We've actually partnered with a platform called wealth.com, and it uses a network of attorneys to be able to write these documents or help you prepare these documents as an individual, right? So we can be there, we can kind of guide you through terms, but we're not going to give you any advice on what's going on there. Their lawyers in the background are going to do that, and the system itself is going to put all the information together and push out these basic estate planning documents. You know, it's a good system. It's relatively cost effective considering. I'm not sure if we want to give a price, but it's going to be case by case, but most of the time it's relatively cost effective. And you do have the option to talk to an attorney after the fact through their system.
Right. So if, someone in this age range is doing very well financially, perhaps they're a doctor, lawyer, dentist, or and they've built up sizable assets, they feel the need for a higher level of estate planning, or maybe someone has received an inheritance of a substantial sum or other assets like properties and things like that. We do have the ability to bring in an attorney for consultations about, looking at the big picture for higher level estate planning. So I think that can help complement a lot of people's planning.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the more sophisticated side of estate tax or estate planning, you definitely want to have that person across the table from you who knows what they're doing and can give you active advice around what the outcome would be.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as we're on the topic of overlooking items, a lot of times people delay planning for college. So one of the things might be, to look at that a little bit earlier. Maybe just like retirement savings, starting a little bit earlier, that can grow into a substantial amount of funds. So, instead of being often overlooked, that might be something that people might want to look at a little closer.
Yeah, leveraging these college-specific savings plans like a 529 plan, especially if you're in a state with income tax, right? So we've got our next-door neighbors here, Massachusetts and Maine. We're sandwiched kind of in the middle there. There are state tax benefits to contributing to 529 plans. It's state by state, so you're going to have to look that up or talk to one of us. But yeah, building up assets over the first 18 years, or if you've got one of the gifted children, it's going to be a little bit shorter. Right?
Yeah.
So, but building those assets up over a period of time is going to be a lot easier than trying to shell out 50, 60K a year come Johnny's 18th birthday, right?
Either that or get them swinging the golf club at age 2 or get them out on the athletic fields as early as possible. Let's talk about some action steps for people. Why don't we – I'll turn it over to you first. You do one, then I'll do one, and we'll kind of cover a couple of them. You want to start off?
Yeah, sure. I think before we talk about the action steps, right, I think we should double back and say there's a lot that happens in these 20 years, right? There are a lot of major changes to a life, right? So I think the first major action step is planning for the goals in between now and retirement, instead of just planning for this retirement that, I'll be honest, at 33, I have little concept of what my retired life is going to look like. Mm-hmm. I just know that I'm going to need money for it. So,
yeah, absolutely. I personally went to college at a time where it wasn't as expensive as it is today. So I graduated in the late 90s. 99-ish, around there. So one of the things that I thought of is avoiding high interest debt. Throughout this age range, we're all going to be spending. The more we spend on using credit cards, the more cost to service that debt, which can eat into your cash flow. So I think one of the big takeaways for me is really avoid that high interest debt. Not that student loans were high interest debt, but I know today that a lot of kids are coming out of college And, that debt, that student loan debt can carry into their, mid-30s and maybe even later. To layer higher interest debt on top of that, can really wreak havoc on the cash flow plan. So that would be, one thing that I was thinking about. I'll circle back to you now.
Oh yeah, we
got a long way to go, right?
We can go through quite a few of these. I think one of the biggest fundamental steps that if you haven't mastered it in your 20s, you need to get on board in your 30s, and then you got to have dialed in your 40s, is you need to be able to direct your cash flow, right? Notice I didn't say budgeting, right? You need to be able to direct your cash flow, not have it direct you. And you said, what do you mean by that, right? If you're not telling your paycheck what to do, you're just spending money willy-nilly, you're going to run out of money, and then you're going to be forced to make choices that might not be optimal. It might hurt. So making sure that you have the important things covered first. You always hear pay yourself first, right? Not going to take that hard line of a stance, but having your hands on the wheel instead of it being, self-driving cars are becoming a thing, but making sure that you're driving the car and not letting the road kind of roll you into a ditch.
Yeah, agree 100%. I have another one. And these are in no particular order, but understanding your investment strategy. And the reason why I say that is because when we're younger, we don't really understand how the markets work. And if there's a significant dip in the market, we may take that as a time to reposition our assets and make big changes when your time horizon might be extremely long and there's really no need to make those drastic changes. That can really stunt the growth of your money. So I think just having a solid understanding of why you're invested the way you're invested will help you during those times when the market gets really, really rocky. So
where do you go to understand that?
And that's when you come work with a professional. So that was going to be one of my next points on the list. Working with a professional. Obviously, there's a lot involved. So there's a lot of planning involved. There's a lot of guidance and a lot of behavioral type of conversations. So that's going to be one that I was going to mention.
Yeah. It's a funny way to think about it, but in teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and going through it as I was coming up, right? One of the best pieces of advice I got that I think applies just about everywhere is if you don't know what you're doing it harder is not the answer.
That's right.
So if you don't know what you're doing in the investment world, jumping on Reddit and picking up random option strategies from Yahoo's mom in the basement.com or something like .com or whatever as a Reddit username, picking up their investment strategies and trying to run with it is probably not a great idea.
Right. Yeah. Agree. What else, Joe? What else do you have?
This is probably going to be the harder one in general, but making sure your behaviors align with what you value and where you want to go, right? So a conversation I had just recently with a friend of mine who was looking for a little help was, okay, what are you doing? And then what's most important to you? And the last question I asked him was, where are you trying to go with it? Right. So kind of this concept of financial orienteering, right?
I like that.
Yeah. Making sure that what you value as a person, right? So whether it be personal values, family values, right? Making sure those align with what you're doing. And if they don't align, right, you need to check yourself. And I feel like this is a series of plugs, but if you don't know, right, talking to somebody who knows what they're doing, and it doesn't even have to be a financial advisor. You could go to that old guy, and say like, hey, like this is where I'm at. What should I be doing? But in the investment realm, you want to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. And measuring progress too. Looking back from where you started to where you are, you can take great pleasure in seeing how far you've come with your savings, your growth, and your financial situation, your career, and everything. Instead of measuring where you are versus that big goal you have down the road, you need X millions for retirement, and you've got this lump sum, and it doesn't look anywhere near what you need. A lot of people can look at that and say, "Oh my God, that number's gonna be so tough to hit." But with what we talked about earlier, the power of compounding, that gap closes quickly. But at least I think pat yourself on the back for all of the progress that you've had with where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think along that line, celebrate your wins, right? Mm-hmm. If you're working on paying off debt, right? You have smaller debts, you build up to paying off bigger debts, or you pay off your highest interest debt or whatever, right? There is nothing wrong with paying off a loan or reaching a milestone in your account, say $100,000, right? And then celebrating that. Take your significant other out for a date, go for a nice dinner, right? You've sacrificed a lot to get to that point, and enjoy the fact that you got to that point, right? Mark it. Just as long as if it's a milestone, right? You don't want to do something that's going to make you drop back down below that milestone.
Right. Awesome. I think we covered a lot. One of the things that we talked about earlier, protecting our assets, and that could also mean protecting our income. So make sure we, look at having the right amount of insurance, as well as securing an emergency fund. That both of those kind of help protect you and protect some of your savings against premature death, and securing income for your family and dependents. We've covered a lot, Joe, but any last items you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I think the big thing I keep saying I think the big thing, right? There's so many big things that go on throughout life, right? There are all kinds of things to cheer on and all kinds of things to mourn. But I think enjoying the process, right? It sounds squishy, but you got one of these, mm-hmm. right? If something's blocking that enjoyment, right, you need to do something about it. And if that means you need somebody's help in figuring it out, go get that help.
Yeah. On that note, that's a great place to really just segue into what Measured Wealth does. We're here, wealth advisors, as financial advisors, helping people putting together these financial plans. If anyone out there is listening, if you're stuck with what to do next or analyzing your current situation, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Joe, thank you again for joining me today. And thanks everyone for tuning into Financial Futures, a Measured Wealth podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an update. Want to learn more? Get in touch. Head over to measuredwealth.net where you'll find prior episodes, helpful financial planning guides, and more. You can also call us at 603-431-1444 or email at info@measuredwealth.net. That's info@measuredwealth.net. Thanks again for listening, and remember, the future will someday be the present.